So as a seer, it's like a multidimensional sight and senses. It's not special, it's a choice, and many people have this natural ability. I've always had a dominant sense of seeing and seeing multiple timelines. But the most important is the present body now. And the most important, just fixing my microphone fell. And the most important is your present life now in this body now. So let's just call back all your energy, or let's call back all our energy back to ourselves. So we're going to ask our higher self and our guides of unconditional love, connecting through the heart. To source consciousness, to the inner body, which is the compass. And we're going to call all our energy back to us now, clean, cleansed, and pure with love, with unconditional love. So I call all of my energy back to me now, clean, cleansed, and pure with love. I call all my energy back to me now, clean, cleansed, and pure with love. And then 3. So one more time. I call all of my energy back to me, clean, cleansed, and pure with love. Okay, and I just got a sound confirmation that it sounds good. If anybody in the chat, if something happens with the video or the audio, just let me know. I can always adjust it. Okay, so good morning. Sinija is here in the chat. Thank you. And she says, good morning, Elaine, and everyone else, with a big pink heart with yellow sparkles. Okay, so let's do that again. Let's call our energy back because that's a good way to start. So again, we're going to connect, just put our attention on the heart, connect with our hearts, and then go into the inner body. Okay, and then we connect with source consciousness in the inner body. And then our inner body works like a compass, letting us know, what is kind of going on with our body. So our bodies are connected to presence when we put our attention into the inner body. And then, if you will, you can say it with me. I call all of my energy back to me, clean, cleansed, and pure with unconditional love now. And then just see how the body feels. And then you might need to open or stretch or move. And then just, if you want to, do go ahead. Take a deep breath. Okay, so I call all of my energy back to me, clean, cleansed, and pure with unconditional love. Okay, good. And then just see how the body feels. And then one more time, take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Stretch as the body needs it. I now call all of my energy back to me, clean, cleansed, and pure with unconditional love now. And then just see how that feels. And then just move and stretch if the body needs it. And then just open, open, open. Okay, good. So now we want to call on our higher selves, our guides of unconditional love, the angels and archangels of unconditional love, to be here for this YouTube live. And we ask that all the information that comes forward is for everyone's highest and greatest good, under the law of grace and under the law of one. And we're asking for, we claim this YouTube live in Source's name and all the technology that that goes with this YouTube live. So the computer, the cables, the Wi-Fi, YouTube. So we claim YouTube in source's name. We claim the computer in source's name. We complain. That's like a funny slip. We complain. Yeah. So we claim the Wi-Fi in source's name. And then I claim Zoom in source's name. And then now let's claim our bodies. So I claim my eyes in source's name. I claim my ears in source's name. I claim my nose and smell in source's name. I claim my taste in source's name. So all of our senses. I claim my body in source's name. So I claim my internal experience of my own transmission in source's name. Good. And then just kind of putting your attention into the inner body. Somehow it helps for me to actually look down, even though I look funny, but it helps actually to look down towards my heart. And then it pulls my attention in. And then, just as a reminder, like the installations cannot enter what has been never vacated. So if we claim it and we're present with our inner body, so we claim it with our eyes open, with our own voice, our own hearing, our own smelling, tasting, like they call it the clairs, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairgustance is taste. And then also our clair knowing. Sometimes we just get information that is complete. You can think of it like a full download. But we always want to ask, like, is there more? Is this complete? Because we want to kind of stop the recursion. We want to stop things from repeating over and over and over and over again, because that's 3 and 4D. 3 and 4D is a constant loop, a constant repeat. It was actually kind of funny when client just recently, like she said, what it looked like is that, that movie, The Truman Show, and I like open the door and I'm like, that's it, good night, whatever, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, goodbye. Like, I walked out the door, and I thought, yeah, that's pretty much the exit for 3 and 4D, where you kind of get the lay of the land, you get how everything it kind of works, and then you basically are not leaving your body and your heart. You're basically connecting with your heart and your inner body, and you're not budging. Like, you're not leaving, you're not sacrificing, you're not dissociating, you're not going anywhere. And of course, there are really good reasons why you would dissociate, because 3D is extremely painful. By the time people have spent even 1 decade on Earth, so much trauma has happened, even in that 1 decade, even in good homes, right? Because if it's not the actual parents or caretakers, it could be that you've had like medical interventions, maybe your parents believe in every kind of medical intervention. And so by the time you're 10 years old, you've had like, so much happen to your body, or maybe so many injuries on your body, or maybe accidents, that you had no control over because you're little. So, but that's kind of like 3D is basically if, the goal. So you can think of them as like in the Gnostic teachings, they were called, and for the last 2,000 years, the purpose of the Gnostic teachings were to help us see things and make connections of things. So just clearing with my hair, because it comes automatically. Like right away, I just hear clear. I hear clear, and then I just do this automatically with my hair. So the Gnostic teachings were there to help us kind of like see, what is actually happening in 3 and 4D, and then we make a choice of what we're going to do with it. And so basically what they did when they buried the texts, they resurfaced and found them in, like, I think 1945. Don't quote me, I'm not that great with numbers, but in the 40s and 50s, I'd say, early 50s or 40s, late 40s. And basically they found these texts, and the purpose of them was to actually show us, that there's like a loosh, like they're wanting our energy in 3 and 4D, and they actually need our energy. They cannot survive without our energy. So they cannot survive without heart-based beings. And so they've taught us that, we're too sensitive, or we're not seeing things accurately, or we don't know what we're saying, or we don't know what we're seeing. And we are seeing things accurately, and we are saying things accurately, but, they don't like what we're seeing and what we're saying. And the thing is, once one person sees, then many see. And they kind of know that it works really fast. Not as fast as like just releasing. It's releasing. Not as fast as, like, say, dolphins are shown as telepathic, where one dolphin learns something and then the rest of the dolphins learn it at the same time. So it's like an immediate download. It's not like that for humans, not in 3D bodies. So more so like in 5D frequency. And so somebody asked me recently, like, what does that mean? Like, what does 5D mean? And everything is a frequency. So our human 3D body can be in the frequency of 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, 8D, and 9D. Somebody recently told me that they can be in 11D in a human body, but I'm not sure about that. But I know up to 9D. And there have been spiritual teachers that didn't mean to be spiritual teachers, but they ended up being called spiritual teachers. Like the one that I'm thinking of is Mother Mary. So Mother Mary, she incarnated in the crucifix timeline, the Jesus crucifixion timeline. And so she gave birth to Jesus. So his other name is, like, you can call him, is Yeshua. She would have had to incarnate in a very dense, low 3D at least 70 to birth a 7D incarnated baby, Jesus. So she incarnated at 9D, and then she would have had to stabilize and awaken in the body at that frequency and hold that frequency. And then when Jesus was born at 7D, he would have felt the intensity of the 3D, and then the discrepancy between 3 and 7 is massive. 7D is pure heart consciousness, but also source consciousness, where that everything is one. Like, an example would be like somebody at 7D. Like, I used to think, if somebody yelled at me, especially, like, I always felt like I needed to, like, fight for my rights, or stand up for myself, or not allow myself to get bullied. So say somebody, in public had like a temper tantrum, And then let's just say it was a man. Okay, so he's a grown man, I'm a grown woman, and he has a temper tantrum. And so I feel like I have to stand up for myself. And then somebody at 7D would say, no, because if you fight with that, it's such a low vibration. It's so petty, even though it seems big, it's petty. And then you will go to the lowest denominator. So if the person is very low 3D, say they have so much anger that they want to be violent, so very low 3D, and then you're entangled with them, even if you're fighting for your rights, you are also going to be going to the lowest of 3D. And the only way to activate that higher consciousness of 7D is to actually get away from the low 3D. Because maybe, maybe you have experience of stabilizing your 7D consciousness no matter what, but most people in a 3D body fluctuate, right? So depending on the situation. And so the most important thing is maintaining your own frequency. So you can see, like, my body right away, like it gets like itchy, almost like it's entangled, just even talking about the story, because the pain body can get activated, because we can go, oh, I remember that happened to me, and then the pain body gets activated. But say somebody that is staying at a 7D frequency would completely ignore the temper tantrum of the person in 3D. Even if they're a grown man and they feel like they need to fight for their rights, they will not fight with the low 3D. They'll walk away. And if they can't walk away, they will not engage. They'll do that, what they call the gray rock. What you do with narcissists is you have to do the gray rock, which means you're not interested. You're not reacting. It's like boring. Like you're bored with whatever they're doing. Like you've seen it, you've done it, you're not interested. But a person in 7D, they know that their frequency matters the most, and holding their frequency is actually the most powerful thing to do. And if they engage, their frequency instantly will go with whatever the lowest denominator of the person is in front of them. So like Eckhart said to me, like in 1997, like he said, like we can test how conscious you are based on how you are when you're around your family, or like or how you are when with the most difficult person in the room. Like, can you stabilize your frequency and not engage? Because the ego wants to fight. Like, so if a man comes up and he starts arguing with me, and I'm like, that's not fair. Like, you're cheating. You're like a liar. You're stealing, like, and I fight with him, then I am at his level, so I can either like get away, get help, I don't know, call the police if I need to, but actually the answer is to not engage with him, because the archons, so the controllers of the 3D and 4D plane, it's not personal. Like it feels personal, but it's not personal because they need your low energy. They need you to be in fear mostly. That's the most important thing. They need you to be afraid. They need you to feel controlled. They need you to feel manipulated. They need you to feel sad or mad or frustrated or grief or trapped. They love it when you feel trapped, like trapped in your life circumstances, trapped by this stranger, where this stranger's, nothing in your life, like you could just get away from them. And Eckhart gave me an example. He said, okay, this is what I was like. So I'm 27 years old. And he said, there's three guys. And I've said this example to somebody just recently. There's three guys and they're on the sidewalk and they're up ahead and you're walking on I'm walking towards those three guys. And then Eckhart said, so what do you do? And I said, well, I'm just going to keep walking. And he goes, well, there's three of them and they're men, and there's one of you. So now what are you going to do? And I was just like, well, we're just walking on the sidewalk. And he said, no, instantly you are outnumbered. There's three men. There's more violence against women in 3D than anything, right? Intimate partner violence, family violence. Like, you're a target. If you're a woman, you're a target. And so he asked again, there's three of them and there's one of you. What are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't understand, Eckhart, why I have to change when I'm already just walking, minding my own business. And then he said, okay, well, how about this? How about you see there's three men and there's one of you, and you just cross the street just just in case, to not be bothered. How about that? And it didn't even occur to me to cross the street, right? And that's how embedded the ego is. Like, that's how tricky the ego is. The ego is so tricky, it will say to you, yeah, just go walk into the three guys and then see what happens. Probably nothing will happen, but let's just see what happens, right? But your consciousness, your super conscious, your source consciousness would say, keep safe. Just keep safe. Like, don't walk into the darkness. Don't walk into danger. Keep safe. And I just heard like a boom, boom, boom bang outside. So I don't know if you heard it through the microphone, but it was like good timing. It's like boom, boom, boom. So, and I just saw a dragonfly fly by. So it's like you have to choose your comfort. You have to choose your safety, and you have to choose the non-conflict route, because the ego loves conflict. The ego loves violence. The ego loves violent movies, loves violent TV shows, loves violent news. Like, the ego loves violence because that keeps you in a fear state of being and the lowest vibration in 3D. And the ego is installed by the archons, which are basically like the administrators for the Anunnaki of 4D. So they they're keeping you in a low frequency because that's what they need. But you need to break free, to not be in that low frequency. Because none of us like that low frequency. It's gross. It sucks. It's horrific. And then when we're surrounded by a whole bunch of people like that, it's horrible. So um yeah, so just that's what came through. They're like, yep, that's it. That's the essence. That's the essence. And so really, I've done everything. I've done everything wrong. I've done everything. I've repeated, the same dysfunctional relationships over and over again. I've, repeated the same horrible dynamics with my, family of origin. And the story never changed. It's just like repeat, 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 repeat. And then, you just tell the truth. Like, you tell the truth. For me, my big thing was I can handle it. It's like horrific things. And I would say to myself, I can handle it without calling on source, without connecting with my heart, without connecting with source consciousness, I would always be like, I can handle it. That is the ego. And that is exactly what got ejected, because I don't do anything by myself anymore. It's always thy will, and always turning it over to source. And I'm talking to source all the time, you know, out loud, and having these having and calling in for help. I used to call in help like once a decade when I was like almost going to die. And then that was it. But they convince you, like 3D, that there's nothing beyond 3D. There's nothing beyond fear. There's nothing beyond, but there's nothing beyond this horror show. Like the Truman Show. He's showing everything is premeditated. I remember studying philosophy, and one of my professors, like, said there's only determinism. Like everything is predestined, pre-organized. He didn't use the word destined because I don't think philosophy professors would use that word, but he said everything is pre-organized. It's determined. And I was like, really? I was so shocked. But it's kind of like that, in the Truman Show, in that movie, he's showing us, like when he wakes up, this happens, and then this happens. And then if he deviates in any way, then there's like other people that would show up that would get him to go back into the old way of the old routine, and that's kind of like, it's hard to admit the truth that is really what our lives are like. If you look back, if I look back, I can see the patterns. When I look back at my life, I can see the openings, and I can also see the pitfalls. I can see where I got stuck. Okay, let's take a look at the chat. Let me just take a look again. I'm like, let me just take a look again. Okay, I'm actually drinking in a mug. I'm drinking coconut water. And you probably can hear my drinking sounds, but it's good because it may remind you to also drink, right? Because we get very dehydrated, and energy work is very dehydrating. So in this work, we want like no sneaky snakes. We want to like look at every corner. And it seems like a lot of work, but being bombarded in 3D is horrific. It's constant work, even though they say, but then you can relax and watch Netflix. It's like Netflix is not relaxing, right? It is like, it is not relaxing. It is put there, to reinforce 3 and 4D. All right, let's take a look at the chat. So thank you for being here. Okay, so Sinija's here. She said that the video and the sound are good so far. Okay, thank you, Sinija. And then Sinija says it's challenge not to engage fighting back as a way of back as a way of defending oneself. Yeah, exactly. Like if you think about it, if you are fighting with reptilians like the Dark Triad, the psychopath, sociopath, narcissist, now they're like, oh, but the worst one is the Machiavellian. It's the same script. Okay, they're always like, this one's way worse. It's the same script. Okay, so they want you to fight because they know that it will be depleting to you. But they can fight all the time because they have nothing beyond 1% consciousness. So they're barely have any consciousness. And then they're trying to stop you from activating and stabilizing at your heart consciousness. So that's 5D. That's the whole goal. The goal is for you not to stabilize your consciousness in 5D because they know that is where you have the most power and influence. Like I said, recently too, I wrote to somebody and I said, if you stabilize your frequency, you help 700,000 people at low 3D. So, we were always told, oh, it's a fight about our rights. It's a fight about this. It's a fight about that. It is a fight about frequency. And they know that you know, if you choose, you're going to stabilize at 5D frequency. And I'm just here saying, let's do it sooner than later, right? And they want it to happen later. And I want it to happen now, in the present, in this body, in this present body, like not a better body, not a different body, but this body. So, you know, in the now. Yeah. And just see what that feels like, right? To actually like anchor in the now. You know, because the 5D like really gives us a chance to have like a blank slate, like a restart, a reset. It actually will feel like coming home. You know, you will feel like you're home finally. And your body will feel at home finally, you know? Like even if everyone on the planet turned to me and they started criticizing my body, I would not budge. Like I love my body. I am so grateful for my body, and my body is what helped me awaken and see what was inside of me and what installations were inside of me and then what needed to be removed. And without a body, I could not have done that. And I do think, you know, when they say the fallen angels, and then they got stuck on Earth, and you know, so they have a lot of tech, like the 4D, they have a lot of tech. And the Greys, you know, they had a lot of tech and they chose technology, but they're missing their heart-based being. You know, they're lost, you know. At least in a body, we can see like what's interfering, what needs to be removed and released. Like we get a restart, a blank slate, like that is surrender, you know. It is surrendering. Consciousness is a surrendering process, and it is a deconstruction. You know, I had a couple people email me recently saying like, oh my God, they figured it's been the ego. Like it's an installation, and they they got tricked, you know, by the ego, because the ego will say, oh, you're gonna make money later, you know, oh, you just have to do all of these things to learn all of these things, but it will happen later. Right. And that's how the Anunnaki bribe people. Oh, you're going to get this now, and then you're going to have to just do some little whatever, sell your soul later, you know, and do some horrific, disgusting things later. But we're not going to tell you, but you have to sign a contract. And of course, it's, you know, you have to freely sign it, you know, because they have like all these rules, right? Because they know crossing consent is a big deal. And so they're trying to make it not that they're crossing consent. So, and then you think, oh, well, you know, how can it be so organized? It's like, well, look at the banking, the online banking that apparently just, you know, the banking system was going to crash in 2000. But instead of crashing, we got an amplification of online banking, which was like unheard of. Like you literally had to go to the bank to physically take out money and to move money. And now we do it online. And we've been doing it online since 2020, so for 26 years. And so imagine the detail work that needs to go into that. Well, that's them. They're that detailed. You know, they love minutia. They love those little details. They love tech. Okay, so let's take a look at the chat. Helen says, hi, Elaine, sending you love. Oh, thanks, Helen. Sending you love back. I'll send you guys, thank you for being here. I'm going to send you some hearts. Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining the chat and letting me know that you're here. Sinija says, okay, so it's a challenge to not engage fighting back as a way of defending oneself. Absolutely. And the thing is, they do horrific things. You know, they do absolutely horrific things to make sure that you stay at low 3D. And, you know, I had someone recently, you know, experience a breakup, and they really were attached to this other person. the person was a narcissist, so it cannot be love, Maybe they did, the empath, maybe they loved the other person, but the other person does not have that capacity. And they said, but that person now is going to hurt because, they don't have my love. And I'm like, that is exactly the heartbreak of the empath or the light worker. The dark triad, they are not heart-based. Reptilians and Draco reptilians are not heart-based. They are not source spark. They are made. And their main job is to destroy empaths and sensitives and light workers, to deplete them and to destroy them, but mostly to convince you to destroy yourself so they don't even have to get their hands dirty. So, that is the fantasy of the empath. The fantasy of the empath, and I had this fantasy because I have a lot. I have a couple Anunnaki and Draco reptilian and reptilian, like the quad that was with me for 4 years. So I was in a trapped 4 lifetimes. I was in this trap dynamic. And I used to think, but if they knew, how good love feels and that true love always wins, that they would choose love. They do not care about love. They do not feel. They do not care. They might seem like they love love because they'll do all this love bombing, right? Like the other person did a lot of love bombing to the person that I know and really got them hooked, for a few years. They got them hooked, right? But they did a lot. It's not like they're idiots, like my friend is not an idiot, right? Like they did a lot of love bombing, until they get you hooked. And then they start kind of dismantling you, because they know, what your trauma is, they know what your weak spot is, because they need all that information. So I said, I know you want that to be true, but they don't care about love. What that other partner cared about was like getting the energy of the empath. So they would basically get depleted and then they would get together with the empath and then they would like suck the energy out of the empath and the empath would be exhausted and would need some time on their own, and then the person would go away with all of this energy. That's it. That's the dynamic. Has nothing to do with love. And they are incapable of love because they are not real. They're made. They're like the administrators for the Anunnaki. They're just there to figure out how to get out the most loosh out of each person. And they always have backups. So, I said, the thing is, you're saying, well, that person's going to realize it, and then they're going to feel, devastated because they've missed out on this love. And I said, they would have had 4 backups or 4 other, at least 4 to 7 to 10. This one guy had 10 relationships at the same time he was married. Like, it was a ridiculous amount. And it bothered him how hard he had to work to maintain those 10 relationships, and it was disgusting, because some of them were like young, like very young. And it's gross, right? So getting some emojis. Yeah. So anyways, so it is hard. So Sunija, you're saying it's a challenge. It's more than a challenge. It is horrific. Like if you are surrounded, and usually you have 3 or 4 up to 8 of the dark triad around you. Like most empaths have way more of the dark triad around them than they realize until they actually awaken and then see. But it is more than a challenge. It is horrific. But maintaining who you are and learning who you are is the most powerful thing that you can do. And basically disengage, walk away, get away, do whatever you can to not engage with them. And then Sunija says, not to give them the pleasure of my tears. Yeah, I mean, they want to see you where your nervous system is like this, and I've ended relationships where I'm like this and I'm shaking and I'm like, I'm completely fried, right? I didn't even know what loosh was, but I understood that I understood that siphoning energy because I would feel fine and then I'd be around certain people and I would be exhausted, very quickly. And then they're like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's wrong with me? I'm just going to go be by myself." And then my energy would come back, right? So when I didn't understand, you know, the when I didn't understand, when I awakened, I didn't actually understand any of these terms. I didn't know who the Anunnaki were. I didn't even know who a reptilian was until 2022. So it's like these are all terms I learned after awakening. So the awakening came first, and then, all of the terms, and then the architecture came after. So you don't need it actually. You can just go with how you would feel. Like I would feel drained. So I just intuitively would go and be by myself. And then my energy would come back. Or go be by the ocean and then my energy would come back. Or go be with the trees and then my energy would come back. So, okay, let's take a look at the chat again. Okay, so Sunija says, what you're saying, how to stay away from them. I see that as defeat. Yeah, I fight them in my head, laugh out loud. So Sunija, 1973, she her. Yeah, exactly. And because you don't want to feel like in a way you're fighting not to die. Because you feel so ganged up on and so defeated that you're actually fighting not to die, you know, because it does feel like your energy is leaving. You feel like you're dying and you feel like you need to fight for your life. But it's the thing that is the most important is to recognize the dynamics that are going on around you and who is heart-based. And usually if you're in those situations where you're fighting with multiple people, like in a relationship or in a family situation, they're usually archon entangled, right? So they're part of the dark triad. And you cannot fight the darkness by going into the darkness. Because you lose one of your main senses, you're seeing. As soon as you go, you lose your eyes as soon as you go into the darkness. And that's what they want. They want you to stay at that low level of fighting forever till you die. Hopefully, and they always say this, hopefully sooner than later. Like who wishes? There's only the dark triad wishes other people's death. Like an empath would never do that. Like it's so gross. Like I would never do that. I don't care who lives and who dies. Like it's none of my business. Right? But the dark triad loves not death, but almost death. So think of it that way. You're fighting with people that, are fighting at almost death level. And so, I mean, what do you want to do with your time, right? You only have so much time. It's not easy. And Sydney just saying, I had enough of the injustice of good people being eaten alive. Yeah, I mean, that's the big switch, right? So that has switched in 2025 because not only are the empath sensitives light workers sick of it, but so is Mother Earth. So, Mother Earth also goes through, like Atlantis, was like completely submerged. Earth has gone through many cycles where, floods have happened and it was like it Earth also goes through transformations as well. And so Earth is sick of the loosh as well. So yeah, I mean, it's gross. I'm just looking at one of my microphone pieces, it's like, yeah, it's like yucky. Whew. Okay. Um, and the thing is, the injustice is like, if you get into the injustice is massive. It goes on and on and on. It goes on, forever, like in all the dynamics, and so you think, how am I going to win? How am I going to win? The biggest win is to focus on your own body, focus on the inner body, and then connecting to source consciousness through the heart. Like if you can do that in a 3D body, that is the biggest win, in my opinion, because I've done both. I did what you're talking about, Sunija. I fought with people. I fought to awaken, like the 4 people in my family, my 2 brothers, my sister, and my mother. And it was a horror show to the end. They love lying, cheating, and stealing. They love it. They love violence. They love wishing death. They love fighting, and then as soon as I saw that what they needed is for me to be engaged in a fight level with them, so they can get that loosh, I'll like cut them off. That's when the degree came in. And I realized, oh my goodness, if I actually cut off the cords and I stop engaging, they have no energy. And not from me, maybe from others, but not for me. But I was the biggest loosh source for them. Not source as in consciousness, but like source as in energy. And so as soon as I cut it off, they had a temper tantrum. I think my younger brother said to me, "Oh, I hope you die sooner than later." For like, of course, it was about money, right? They were stealing. So it was, but I didn't change my mind. I stayed with the decree. I stayed with pulling back my energy, and I stayed with cutting off all the cords and then releasing them to source, right? With the decree, we're releasing it to source. And I feel so much better. This was so hard for me to do, And I finally, it was like a light bulb went off and I figured it out. And then once I figured it out, then that's when everything accelerated very quickly. And that was last year in August 2025. So it's not even that long ago. But as soon as it happened, then everything started accelerating really, really, really quickly. Okay, and then Sunija says, okay, I wonder, she says, I wonder if the New Age books are a honey trap for our souls. Yeah, good question. The information in those books looks like positive, looks like a positive knowledge that we can use. Are there invisible negative frequency lies in them? Yeah, so most of the spiritual teachers, especially the ones in the past, like how can you tell the difference? Okay, so how can you tell the difference if a spiritual teacher is using loosh, getting energy and then siphoning energy and creating depletion, or if it's like, for your highest and greatest good, like for your awakening, like I would say that in my time that Eckhart was my teacher for 3 years, from 1997 to 2000, and going through the awakening process through consciousness, it cost very little. It was always for my highest good. He was always like, it was always for my highest good. And there was no program I had to follow. It was all like noticing my own inner body, noticing my own heart and my own presence, and then being, you know. I mean, he was pretty famous then, even then. I mean, in 1997, his book was a New York Times bestseller. Like he could have been fully, he doesn't have an ego. That's the whole point. It's been dismantled. But I think with spiritual teachers, you have to see, what's the agenda, and also um um like, are they heart-based beings? Like, it's tricky, and 3D is tricky because they'll say like 80% is true and then 20% is false, is a distortion, but you have to find the teachers that tell the truth all the time. So, I mean, I've now not seen Eckhart like one-on-one in person since 2000, but when I look back on my time with him for the 3 years where I meditated and awakened in consciousness and presence, there's no red flags because nothing happened, except for my awakening and then me shutting down my awakening. And then that's when you can really see, like, what happens when you study certain modalities, or when you like, I studied in 2023, I studied mediumship, and my mediumship teacher was saying, open your crown 100%. What? I was like, so I tried it, and she's like, it's very safe. And then I was like, that's bananas. That's complete bananas. There is no way you can open your crown 100% and be safe, right? Like, bananas, you know? And so what's mediumship? Is mediumship is people that have passed on, and then you can, communicate with people that have passed on. My experience is like, I don't have to open anything up, like 100%. I can just be in my body, in presence, connected to source. And then as soon as I make the intention of wanting that connection, then the person will come forward. you know I had one person recently, in her, and it was like, it was benevolent, like the dad was very protective and he died, and he wanted to stay protecting, his daughter, but there was this cord between them, what I saw energetically. So maybe you could call that mediumship, but I call it seeing. So I talked to the dad and I said, look, it's actually, she has her own family, she's a mom, and she needs her energy, and it's actually not helping her. And then the dad's like, I thought it would help her. And I said, it seems to not be. And it would be best if it was released. It will be released anyways because it's not for her highest and greatest good. But I wanted to get the dad on board, and the dad had passed away for quite a few years, like maybe 7 years. So I, asked the question, and then I heard his answer, but I didn't push anything. I didn't have an agenda. Like, she asked the question, and then when she asked the question, the dad appeared, and then, we had a chat. But I said it out loud. So as he was talking, I said what was coming through. So she could feel it in her body. Actually, she got up right away and she started moving her body. She's like, is it okay? Like, because a lot of energy all of a sudden came back into her body. And then she just said, this is so simple. Like, I can't believe it was like so hard for so long. And I said, yeah, it's so hard. It's hard. I had met her husband a few years ago, so he's the one that suggested, but she couldn't imagine that it would help her. So um, she said it was so hard for her to make the appointment. Um, So, but and then it helped a lot, but it is hard because it's, energy work is very abstract, right? And you got to really use your discernment. So in terms of like, a honey trap for our souls, yeah, absolutely. Like, if they can do it through religion, great. If they can do it through you being an atheist, great. If they can do it through you being spiritual, great. Like, I don't think of myself as spiritual. I could think of myself as an energy worker, as a seer. Like, I see things in terms of clearing and releasing. And then you can get to who your organic, like, original kind of template, basically, as a human being. And I don't, like all the galactic stuff, yeah, like I know, I see, I whatever, but it's a distraction. Again, getting you out of your body, going, oh, the galactics are coming. Oh, the galactics are communicating, and I see so many people, it's like, well, the Andromedans talk to me. And it's like, well, they can if it's useful to you, right? But is it useful to you? Is it benevolent? Is it for your highest and greatest good? And then in terms of spiritual teachers, we really have to use our discernment just with like anything on 3D. Who is it and what is the purpose of it? And then what are they gaining? Like, when I had talked to Eckhart and he was my teacher in 1997, like he said he's never going to have like a property where people come and like meditate together because it creates like a madness. He's like, he'd never want those kind of problems, so he does kind of like virtual he does like interpersonal like events where he's there and he sits in a chair and he talks to everybody for a couple of hours, but he mostly does stuff that is virtual. So but I like this other teacher a lot, actually. Like he's very heart-based, but he has a lot more kind of gossip around him because he actually has a retreat center in Portugal. His name's Muji, Mooji. So if you really like Jesus and that kind of like peace, love, and harmony, he is literally peace, love, and harmony. He's a very joyful, peaceful person. But because he has like an actual property where people go for retreats, he has kind of more gossip around him. And where Eckhart, there's not really any gossip around him because nothing happens. He's very joyful. I was going to say he's not jaded. He's very joyful as a teacher. Um, I just have to send a text quickly. Okay, thank you for the hearts. I'll send some hearts back. So hopefully that resonates. It's not easy, it's not tricky. I've had teachers that I have really liked, but the big thing I saw actually, like what I saw with QHHT, besides like quantum healing hypnosis technique with Dolores Cannon, which I studied, I think I started in September 2023, and I removed myself from the registry in January 2026, is that my energy depleted and I started aging very quickly. And I would get really like, I would have amazing sessions and I'd have like, it would be like a big high, but then afterwards I would crash for 2 days. So I started seeing like what's happening with my energy. Is my energy being siphoned? And then, of course, doing this work, other seers also come see me. So they started asking questions, so we started asking questions together, so two seers, two empaths, because a lot of sensitives and empaths and light workers came for sessions because they wanted to understand what happened in their lives. So, but I mean, that whole program is fully just for loosh. Like, it's not benevolent, is what I found out. So, but even without knowing like the details of it, now I know the details. I was noticing how was my energy. And then, um, like I would say that when I meditated with Eckhart, I very quickly activated because I was like, I know this. I love this. I love how this feels. Like I can feel my inner body. Like I love this, you know? And so I activated very quickly. But I would say that even though I loved the work, I loved the clients, I loved even the style of the sessions, I was very depleted. So, yeah. So you can just follow what your body's showing you, you know? And I look in that time frame, and within a year, I very much aged very quickly. My skin broke out, like my energy was gone, and even just resting and being by myself, I couldn't rejuvenate my energy. So I really saw how it affected my energy. And I feel like that is the biggest clue. Does your energy go up when you're around certain people, or does your energy go down? Okay, so let's take a look at the chat again. Um, So, yeah, I would just say with New Age books, just going back to Sunita's question, I would say that, yeah, it's always discernment, and then kind of see how your body reacts and see how your body feels. If you feel kind of more confused or almost like you want to like fully follow somebody because you're like, like it's like an adrenaline rush, like both of those are actually clues. Because if you think about like any cults, they need you to like be fully like, um, like, yeah. And I mean, even one of my clients, he's a seer, and he said, like, do you feel like QHHT is a cult? It kind of feels like a cult, you know? So it's like, the questions, once you start asking questions, the questions start coming out, but the questions usually like answer themselves. Not that they're, by a cult, I mean, like, it's a strong word, but it's kind of like it was, if you think about it, like with QHHT, they say, Dolores would say, listen to the same recording over and over and over again. So then, say if somebody was doing loosh in the recording, maybe it was set up that way, then you listening to the recording over and over again is going to create that loosh over and over and over again. And they say, don't do more than one QHHT session, but I actually found the more QHHT sessions I did, because I was a practitioner and I also had other friends that were practitioners, so we would do trades together. So I did actually many sessions. Um, and then the more conscious I became. So yeah, like I can see why Dolores said only one, but I actually feel like that's because it creates like this cube of loosh. And so by actually having more, you're asking more questions, you're calling on your higher self, you're connecting with your higher self. So, and that all creates cracks, like you can't be controlled if you're constantly connecting with source consciousness and your higher self, God, source, divine presence. Um, yeah. And questions really like pop like questions are really important. So let's take a look at the chat again. Okay. Can you please talk about the different media influences us? Can you please talk about different media influencing us, especially the children? I mean, that's the program. That's the Truman Show. That's the program. I mean, if they have to get it in absolutely everywhere, they have to get it in the schools, they have to get it in the media, they have to get it, in every area. Like, they had that thing where, oh, this broke out on the whatever cruise ships, and like everybody was like bored and didn't care. Like it's like didn't create a hysteria, and it just ended, you know. They're always looking to see how we react. Are we buying into it? And if you're like that gray rock, the neutral, 0 point neutral, there's nothing to feed off of. It's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, as soon as you get to a point where you're like tracking and you're seeing, oh yeah, they did that. Oh, and they're doing it again, and then they're doing it again, and they're doing it again. It's like, I'm not interested. Like boring. Like you're not who I thought I was. It's like not interesting. And then as soon as you have that detachment, they know you're gone forever because you're connecting all the dots. You're asking yourself questions. A narcissist needs you very isolated in order to control you. So, and and the same for like the 4D Anunnaki and in controlling the 3D. They need you, saturated with their information and their point of view. And they absolutely need you to not do research, not to ask questions. And they need you to be terrified in a low base fear all the time. So if it's about money or relationships, but they need you to be afraid. So Cindy just says, I did the 13th fear decree. I didn't write any of my personal fears, just followed your dictate. Is that how it's supposed to be done? Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you're doing the decree, and because this is, if I do the decree with clients, so if I do the decree with clients, we usually talk about what's happening in their lives, and then I'll just write notes of, like, okay, this is, this is something to name in the decree in terms of like releasing. And then this is what is coming up to reclaim, like to reclaim their freedom, to reclaim their sovereignty comes up all the time. And then usually what they want to release is like the controllers. They want to release the control. They want to release the manipulation. They want to release like this person or this place or this work environment or this boss, this dynamic. And so if there's things that come up when you're listening to the decree, notice that. And if there's things that that happen with your body, notice that as well. But the way I usually write it, I usually wait until I get kind of like the call of what the next decree is, and then I'll get kind of like what I describe as a download of like how to put it together. And then I film it, and usually I only have to film it in one go. I it is a template. You can use it, you can change it, and whatever, you can do whatever. You can do whatever. Cindy, like just do whatever feels right in the moment. But usually when you're listening to the video, things will pop up in your head, and things that bother you it will show what bothers you. So yeah. All right. Thank you. Lots of love back. Yeah. The big thing is like naming it, and then what do you reclaim? And then getting that updated in the cosmic records with Toth. That has been the big, the Akashic records, of course, but the cosmic records with Toth and updating it. And so if I have what I call like an attack, like my sunburn, I will name it to Toth, and I will say, I want that recorded in the cosmic records. And I'll do the same with the Akashic records. Yeah. Okay, so we have a new person. So at Yeti dash X2K. Hi, welcome. I feel drawn to connect with Callie and Hela or Hila to transmute ancient karma that may be causing anxiety. I've never meditated on any beings of the underworld. I feel drawn. Okay, so let's see. I feel drawn to connect with Kelly. We'll start with the first question. Yeah, Kelly is a goddess. And she like chops heads. Like she does not like it. She is looking for justice, and she has like no mercy. Like she calls it as it is, and she goes into action. So that's what she's kind of known for. And actually, I did a decree recently with somebody, and she called on Callie as one of her guides of unconditional love. But what I always say is call on Callie, but say if Callie comes in, she must absolutely be of unconditional love, like service to source, not service to herself or not service to another entity, but service to source. And then Hela, I don't know who that is. Who Hela is, Hela. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. I have no idea. Um, Whoa, I needed a clearing with that. So I don't know who Hela is actually, but I feel like I have to clean my senses. I feel like I have to clean my nose, my throat. So we're just asking whoever Hela is, Hela, that they, if they're in this space, that they are of only unconditional love and in service to source and in service to Yeti, at the handle, at Yeti. So as soon as I read that name, my body instantly reacted, right? My throat started closing. I coughed. I feel like my head's congested. So then we just say, Hel, Norse goddess. Okay, so Hela is a Norse goddess. Okay, thank you, Yeti, at Yeti. And if you can put your first name too, I can actually call you by your name, but only if you want to. Okay, so is a Norse goddess. So let's take a look. Hela is a Norse goddess. Oh yeah. So right away they're like, it's like very powerful energy. It's a very powerful energy. Um, so in service to self or in service to source? That's always the question. It doesn't feel clear to me. Um, so I'm asking if Hela, the Norse goddess, is service to source. It's kind of like it feels frozen, I feel like there's a lot of body information that I'm getting. Um, but I think just think of your intention. If think of the intention that you want, like your intention, Intention. Think of your intention when communicating with Kali and communicating with Hela, the Norse goddess. So I always preface everything that the only people that can be in this space is of unconditional love. So a love that has no conditions. So say if I call in Hela, the Norse goddess, I will say, Hela, I call on you, the Norse goddess, and I call on you if you are of only unconditional love. and then and then I see if they can be there, then they have to be here of only unconditional love, which means that they will be here for my highest and greatest good or your highest and greatest good. Yeah, so I see that you're kind of clear, like saying some messages and then clearing them. It's kind of like Callie, when I call on Callie, I like her. I like her. She's intense. She's has a reputation of being like chopping off heads. She is intense. But of course, this is energy work, right? This is energetic. It is not in the physical 3D world, and it's not she doesn't physically chop anybody's heads, but she has that reputation of that fierceness. So if she has the fierceness of that dedication to source consciousness, then I say, yeah, of course. Like when we called her in, the client wanted to call her in. And so when we called in Callie, she said, like with honor, like, so yeah. Um, And then, like, I feel drawn to Kali. Okay, and then Hela. So we know Hela is a Norse goddess. So to transmute ancient karma that may be causing anxiety. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that causes more anxiety than the 3D archons. The reptilians and the Draco reptilians. You don't have to go into the underworld because they're like everywhere. They're like in all the power positions, they're like everywhere. And there's nothing that creates more anxiety and fear than their frequency, So, I've never meditated on any beings of the underworld. Yeah, I mean, usually, like if any guides come forward, I always ask, are they of unconditional love? And I wait, and I wait and kind of see how it feels, you know, around. Like, how do they feel? Um, and then at Yeti, the handle, so at Yeti, not the name, but at Yeti. Apparently they want to show up now and clear their names and reputation. Yeah, I mean, like Kelly has a horrible, reputation, but most of the women goddesses do, like, but it has to be like there's one, like one of the goddesses, I can't remember in the ancient Greek timeline, and I can't remember her name right now, but anyways, to me, she's like a psychopath. She was not of source consciousness. She was like an Anunnaki, and she completely was destructive in her power, and it was actually really like the things that she did were like so horrific. So she was not, she was an Anunnaki like in a body, basically, and they rarely do come in a body, but anyways, so it depends. Not all goddesses are benevolent, not all gods are benevolent, not all ascended masters are benevolent, not all, that's why we have to ask, like, is it like, are they with source? So let's ask again. So Hela is a Norse goddess. Is she with source? Is she in service to source? Yes or no? Okay, so I feel like, she came in and it was like a big crash. My body really reacted, but it feels like she's stabilized, which means, I stabilized. I still don't I still don't get a yes or a no. So that's something that you just have to check in with. But I would say absolutely, I would not work with anyone unless I get a clear yes, they are in service to source. Because if they are in service to self, they can, they it can destroy your life because they're just looking, it's just like having an ancestor. Say an ancestor died and they spent all their time doing drugs, and they had a specific mission. And they were like, oh no, I didn't do anything. I did drugs the whole time. And then they die, and then they're trying to get their agenda through like through you in because you're in the body. And so they're constantly trying to steer you into their direction. It first of all, it doesn't change their situation. They have to face what they did in their time space, right? Just like we all have to face what we do in our time space. It actually does not help them by going through you. So say Hela, the Norse goddess, is wanting to clean up her reputation. And so she's like, well, you look like you got like a good body to take over, so she like takes over my body thinking, okay, well, she wants to kind of clear up her reputation, through me. But she's using me. So she's not going to be able to get any brownie points using me, so all that's going to happen is I'm going to get drained. And then she's not going to get what she wants because light is earned, not taken. Energy can be taken, but light consciousness cannot be taken. So then she's going to be like back where she was, trying to clear up her reputation. So all that happened is that you're drained. So But I don't know. Anytime I've worked with Kelly a couple times, and anytime I've worked with Kelly, when I'm very clear that she has to be in service to the client, she has to be in service to source, and there's no funny business. Like I am so gridlock, I am so gridlock. It is an absolute. And, you know, um, so right now, as I'm feeling Hela Norse goddess, I would not work with her myself. Because I did not get a clear yes. And I understand she wants to clean up her reputation, but it has to be in service. If you want to clean up your reputation, then go into service, not into service into yourself. Um, okay, so and then Sunija says, you said fearness. Did you mean fearlessness? Yeah, probably. I actually don't remember what I said, but yeah, thanks for that correction. But yeah, probably fearlessness. So and then Sinija asked about Medusa, or if I was talking about Medusa. No, it was somebody else. That it was like a Greek goddess, and she had a lot of power, and she was so destructive. Like when I look at the Greek history and then I read up on the things that this goddess did, like she's just a psychopath, like she just did horrific things all the time. And apparently she was really hard to get rid of and control, because um, she created so much destruction in 3D. But I cannot remember her name. Uh, maybe it's good because maybe I don't want to name her on YouTube because who cares? We're not in the ancient Greek timeline. So, but yeah, since we're talking about different guides coming forward, I would just say, I would just say, ask, be very clear. I would not work with anybody unless I'm sure that they are of service to you and to source and not to themselves. Okay. Um, and then the handle at Yeti, they said they will help us clear ancient karma much easier than we can ourselves. Karma that may not be reached with light deities and beings. Yeah, those secret contracts I would stay absolutely away from. And I've seen people that got tricked into those contracts and we've had to clear them in sessions. But they suck. Like any kind of negotiation like that. Like, are you telling me that you're more powerful than source consciousness? Like than source, than the divine? Like, is that what they're saying? They're saying they can actually do more than what source can do. It's a trick. That's how, so, and I'm getting lots of 100%, so I'm going to send some hearts back. But those are the tricks we get tricked into these contracts. Like I know somebody that he's pretty famous, and he said, I had this contract and I signed this contract. And I was just like, yeah, dude, that's not positive. Good. That that's not good, so he's thinking it's good. He signed this contract. Like there's no contracts. You don't have to sign a contract with source, with consciousness, with the divine. I saw that my screen just went blanked out. It's like there's no contracts. Like you're in service to source, in service to your heart, in service to consciousness in your heart. But all those funny deals, we can clear better. We can do more. It's like really more than source. So, and then, that they can't be reached by light beings, like light consciousness, like source light can go everywhere and anywhere into the darkest of the dark. Like when we release things that have happened to us that have been horrific, and we finally surrender and say, I release this to source, it releases to source, and then that light from source goes to the perpetrator. And I've seen it and I've heard it all the time that the Anunnaki negotiate so that does not happen. They do not want you to release it to source. And that's when all these negotiations come in. That's what I've seen. That is what my experience is. I would be very, I would be very cautious. I feel like it's a trick. I would never go for that trick. I think that is not true. A source can go into the darkest of the dark, but we have to call source in because we are in a 3D body. So and then Yeti at Yeti, the handle, so at Yeti, not the person, but at Yeti says, I've only worked with the light and I'm almost always in alignment when I'm not engaging with the 3D. So I've stumbled on these I guess it's deities, and their message at seemingly the right time. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just think anytime somebody says I'm special, I have like these special things and I can go into special places. I feel like that's a trap. I feel like source and consciousness, everything is always out front and it's very transparent. There's no sneaky snakes. It's not tricky. It's straightforward. And then Sinija says, 3D is all contracts. Your screen didn't blank on my side. Okay, that's interesting. So for me, what it looked like at that point was it went black and then it went back on. So it's always interesting to see if it happens actually like on the video. Um, but yeah, you know, 3D is all contracts. It's all special, right? If you want to be in this special club and you make these special hand signals, which I'm not going to do them, but like the famous people, like the Hollywood famous people, they do all those hand signals and they do all the hand signals all the time. And they're not air quotes. Like air quotes aren't a special symbol, they're just air quotes. Um, but they do those special symbols all the time because they have to show who they're in service to, right? And at Yeti says her screen did blink. Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. Like Sunija, her screen didn't blink or blank out. It went black actually. And then at Yeti says hers did or theirs did. I don't know actually if it's male or female, so there, I'm just call them they. And then Helen, your said your screen blacked out on my side. Yeah, so that's interesting. So 2 out of the 3 people saw the screen go black. It actually went black and then it went back to regular. So, but it'll be interesting to see if it's actually, because that's why I record the sessions as well through Zoom so that I can actually see, what happens. What happens? And then it looks like another person joined. Yeah, so Sabina at Sabina. So Sabina has joined and she says hi, hi. So hi, and thanks for all the questions and YouTube handle at Yeti. Like they're good questions, that you're asking because this comes up all the time, like all the time in energy sessions, and then people get very afraid. It's like you don't have to be afraid when you are connected at 5D heart-based consciousness. So when you're at heart-based consciousness, you are seeing things as they are and not how you have been told to see them. So, yeah. But I think, like really, like all we really need is our higher self, or what Eckhart calls the deep I, because he says as soon as we say higher self, people pop out of their bodies, because they think it's higher, like out, so he likes, connecting with the heart and then going into the deep I. So really like going into the deep I or to our higher selves, and then connecting to source consciousness and then seeing how things feel. But anytime anyone has any special, like they can do special things and they can like clear special things. Like I would say at Yeti, I'm not I'm not saying like what to do, but I'm going to say if you want to clear karma and you want to clear like your energy field, try the decree process. So the decree, DECREE, and it's a series that I have on YouTube, and I think there's up to 13 videos. There are up to 13 videos, and I talk about, how to kind of keep your space at a frequency level, and then also naming your space and preparing your space, what to keep in your space, like certain plants create like a frequency, and then claiming technology in source's name, and then like doing a decree on the body, so like releasing what is not yours, and then the next one, so it's like the body decree, and then the post decree, like so how like self-care is so important. And then part 8 is the family decree. Because with the family, it's when you're in the family dynamics, it's hard to see where the dynamics are coming from. Like, where's the interference coming from? And then part 9 is the inner child healing, which is so important because our inner child is our higher self. So it's so important. And then the next one is part 10 is the financial decree severance. And then I always say to do them in a row because it really prepares your nervous system. And, I had one person say, oh, well, my money situation is really good. I don't need to do the financial severance decree. And I always say, but you don't know, because there might be things in the family lineage that is also there that could be cleared. We don't know. So I suggested to him actually to try it, to do it. And then part 11 is the ex-relationship decree. Part 12 is manifesting, how to manifest, quick and easy. We always like quick and easy. And then part 13 is the light worker's fear decree. So that's when we think of like, okay, well, heavy karma, or is there karma from another past life that is interfering with this life? Is it from my ancestors? Is it hard for me to clear? And it's kind of like, Sunija asked, can I change the wording and change it a bit? It's like change what you revoke and then what you reclaim. Like make that part of the decree personal. And then that's kind of where we're at. Let's take a look at the chat again. I was just kind of like wondering, like I think that, the karma clearing and the decree kind of does the same job, because you're clearing like interference. It's almost like how the Earth's grid line, the crystalline grid, is like also clearing the ley lines and clearing the stargates, if we want to get like you know, super out there. But it's kind of the same thing, but we're doing the same with our body, but our body actually shows us what is interfering. So you can think of it as karma, or you can think of it as installations, or you can think of it as entities, like whatever. If it freaks you out calling it entities, and only some people have entities, it's like all of 3D is an entity. It literally is run by entities. So is 4D. So it's like, don't be so freaked out. They're kind of like the norm. What they don't like is the heart. They don't like the heart. Um, Sabina says she did the toxic relationships decree and she found it very super powerful. She said, that's great. Oh, that's really good, Sabina, that you did that. And then try, if you can, go back and try kind of go to the beginning. And then, because usually we go for the one, but there's a lot that if you had like an ex relationship, there was a lot that happened before your life, before that relationship came in, right? And then let's see so the handle at Yeti, as sparks of source consciousness, are we indeed totally sovereign beings? If so, to progress our ascension, we need only ourselves. Yeah, that's the big answer. You know? I mean, because we were basically trained always to look outside of ourselves, to not be in our body, to not be embodied, that the spiritual teachers, the body is interference and we need to ascend the body, we need to transform the body, we need to get away from the body. But the body actually gives the answer of what is interfering with your consciousness and then what your connection to source consciousness, what is interfering with source consciousness. So it's like we're a spark of source consciousness. And then if the more interference, the more kind of like coverings or ley line covers or more screens, or you can think of it as, I've seen it as steel cages, I've seen it as screens, I've seen it as grids, I've seen it as spiders, I've seen it as scarabs from the Egyptian expression, as like interference. And then, but the decrees actually will remove it, like in layers, it will remove it with your comfort. So, um, so yeah, we are sovereign beings. We are. And we've been tricked that we're not, that we're not sovereign beings and that we need something outside of ourselves and we need to leave our body. Because if we leave our body, then something else is coming in our body. And that's basically the reptilians and the Draco reptilians are made and they need us to leave our bodies so they can come in and be in our bodies. I actually kind of had like a dream about it the other day where I saw my younger brother. He had changed so dramatically. And at one point, he went missing, when he was little, about 4 or 5. And he came back, and to me, he was not the same. So what I learned was that he actually incarnated as a cherub. And then it was so traumatic, like the mother was a psychopath. So it was so traumatic, he left. And then as soon as he left, the Anunnaki came in and basically have been in, and he's been like a drug addict, kind of like addicted to drug. But, and I don't, I always felt sorry for him, like, come back, come back, come back, and he wasn't interested at all. But it's, for him, he loves lying, cheating, stealing. He loves violence. They love all of that. It's food for them. So, and you have to call a spade a spade. You have to call things as they are. I'm not judging. I'm finally surrendered and I finally admitted that this is the reality. Like, this is what I saw, this is what I experienced, and that, I'm hopeless, like it's hopeless for me. Like like I spent decades wanting the answer to be different than it is, but it is the way that it is. He is the way that he is, and then he has to choose, he has to decide if he wants something different. But I actually am totally powerless over him and the situation. So Sinija is asking, yeah, we're getting close to time, but Sinija said, as I'm clearing for myself, does it get cleared for my ancestors too? Only in relation to you, like say if something was entangled between you and an ancestor, then it will get cleared with the ancestor, but the ancestor still has to choose. The ancestor has to decide for themselves. If they say yes, and they want it to be cleared, then yes, it will be cleared for them too. But they have to decide. Like, we can't decide for others. And then Sabina says, it's interesting because I used to think there wasn't any interference, but there was, the headaches and whatnot. After your session, I'm totally aware of it and I'm working on staying in the heart. Yeah, it's totally true. Yeah, it's like you can see it in the body, the headaches, the migraine headaches, the body pain, the body aches, the energy like so drained, you can't get up and you can't even imagine, how did you used to run? How did you, what, it wasn't that long ago that you had this amount of energy, and where did the energy go? Um, and then, yeah, so great, Sabina, thank you. And then Sunija says, that's why they want us to be in stress all the time. Yeah, exactly. Like, they need us to be in the lowest vibration. And, your intention, like the decree makes it really clear, like, what is your intention that you want to be cleared? Like, you're naming it. I want to release this. And then I reclaim this. Like, I reclaim my sovereignty. I reclaim my peace. I reclaim my heart. I'm going to stay, and this has come up with me. It's like I have to, like, open my heart. I used to have like such an open heart. I was like, I believed in true love more than anyone on the planet. I was like a beacon of true love. It was true love or nothing, you know? And then it's just, I got decimated and I would just close my heart. And then now I'm opening it again, because I'm being guided that it's it's okay, you know? I have so much I have so much knowledge now to be able to clear. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to choose the wrong person, but then once you awaken, reclaim all your energy. Reclaim all your energy every day, all the time, because other people can't do anything with your light. They have to earn it themselves. They have to choose it themselves. That's so tough. That was so tough for me. Absolutely. You know, the bleeding heart, the bleeding heart. And also too, like, really trusting in people's agency. Like, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And you can really think about that. Like, when people really choose a destructive path, like, you can be there to support them in choosing a destructive path, but you can also like not, you can like disengage. Um, your frequency of your heart and your vibration, it matters the most in especially in stabilizing your energy. Yeah. So I think let's end here. We're at 102 minutes. 102, which is a 3. So yeah, let's end here, and then let's just seal the space in Source's golden light. And then let's just ask for all the conversation and everything that happened in this session to be released to Source with unconditional love, and that we, are here to kind of like tell our truth as we see it in this moment. But the most powerful thing is, again, to just go back into the heart and go into the deep I, the higher self, connecting to that inner pillar of source consciousness, and then we're wanting that blank slate of like, a restart, clearing our energy so that we have, we can kind of calibrate again at a frequency, a heart-based frequency. And then our intentions are so important, so like an intention would be like, my intention with this YouTube live is to have a conversation so that we can talk about kind of like what works in terms of like consciousness and maintaining our field of energy, our energy and our heart-based consciousness and our sovereignty and staying in our heart space, and not getting tricked anymore, like tricked with contracts and weird little hand signals and, like enough with the garbage, like it's like everything that we need is in us and our body will tell the truth absolutely every time. Our body never lies. And I'm so grateful for my body. Like, I feel like my body is like a fine-tuned instrument with source because it always tells the truth. Even when I want the answer to be different, it will always tell the truth. So, all right, let's leave it here. Let's end here. Thank you for being here. There's a few thank yous I just want to acknowledge. Sinija says, thanks for your thoughts so much, Elaine. So thank you, Sinija. And Helen says, thank you, Helen. And then Sabina says, love that. Thank you. So lots of love, sending lots of love to everybody. And then handle at Yeti so that you're new. So thank you and welcome for being here. And thank you for asking questions in the chat. At Yeti says, thank you so much for your wisdom, knowledge, and guidance. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Yeah, we're here to help each other, and like people never talked about the interference and then how to clear, but also to be sovereign, like you don't need anyone more than you. Like you're the answer, like that's not the ego, but you are the answer with your heart and your inner body and your connection to source consciousness. Like, you're the answer and you're the answer that everybody's been waiting for, because as you activate and awaken to your consciousness, then that actually awakens everyone that wants to. It helps whoever wants that vibration and that frequency. So, all right, we'll see you in the next one. I'm here on Thursday morning for another YouTube live at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, so PST. And yeah, I know that we're here from kind of all over the world, so thanks for being here. Beach time, Sunija says, yeah, Pacific. So lots of love, and we'll end here. It's 106 we're at. One, anyways, who cares? I'm like, I can't think about numbers right now. So we will see you in the next one. Okay, thank you so much for being here. Lots of love. Take care. Excellent questions.